Hello, this is my M1. I did a couple modifications. I added some LEDs and some headlight and stuff. Eventually I'm going to probably put DCC in this thing. I'm going to have to use 2 decoders, a steam and a diesel, and it's a pain in the butt. But for now I wanted to add some lights. So I experimented with a couple capacitors and some diodes and a xenon diode to keep the LEDs on when the train stops. Not forever, just, for a little bit, and to help keep the headlight and the LEDs the same brightness even if the train is going slow. So I'll show you what I've done here. I'm going to power the train up. They don't light up in reverse, obviously. I'll show you. Now they're on. I just killed the power to the train and they're still on. And they'll dim out. But once you power them up, once the capacitors get charged, see how bright that headlight is and how slow the train is going? There's only 4 volts on there. We'll drive all the way around. Now that's 8 volts. And the lights are pretty much full capacity. I don't know how well you can see them. I don't have the overhead light on because I wanted to be able to see the lights on the train. We'll slow it down when it gets here. See how I just slowed the train down and the LED, the headlights stayed bright? That's what I was trying to accomplish. Basically, to do the same thing that DCC does to a light. Now, I'll come to a complete stop and the headlight stays on. It will dim out when it uses the juice from the capacitors. And the little LED stays on for a little while until you now you'll see how I powered those capacitors up, and when I back up, the LEDs still stay on. So if that capacitors were fully charged, the headlight would stay on and it would go out. It would go dim. So what I've done here is I put light boards on the side that light. They're not very bright, but they do light up. I'll hold the train here so you can see them. See how they light up? Obviously there's one on either side. Red LED, green LED on the other side. So what I've done is I used 3. I really wanted to use super capacitors because they're smaller and they hold a lot more current for a lot longer, but I didn't want to waste them because it was an experiment. So what I used is 3 4700 microfarad caps. They're wired in parallel. On the positive side of the capacitor, there is a diode with the band facing the positive terminal on the capacitor. Now that diode that I use is a xenon diode, or a Zener diode. Zener. 12 volt to stop the capacitors from getting any more voltage than 12 volts. That also helps keep the LEDs from getting brighter. Once you hit a 12 volt threshold, they won't get any brighter. They're 25 volt capacitors, so I didn't even need that diode. They wouldn't blow up with 18 volts. And then there's another diode on the negative of the capacitor with the band facing away from the capacitor. And what this does is it stops the motor from drawing out of the capacitors, from sucking the life out of it, because then it would be redundant. That would be useless for me to even try to do something like that if the motor was going to take current from it. So, like I said, if I power this up, the motor doesn't see any of that power that the capacitors have in it. It's only for the LEDs. It doesn't hold on to them that long, but what it does do is when I'm going really creeping along, it allows the headlight to be bright, where normally you wouldn't even see it. That's at 3 volts. And that headlight, when I'm running around at 3 volts, that headlight, or at 5 volts now, 6 volts, that headlight is just as bright as it is going to be at 10 volts. It gets a little bit brighter, but not as bright as you would think it would. Because once the capacitors have the current stored in them, the LEDs are going to take the current from the capacitors. That's why when I stop the train, the lights stay on for a little bit. They slowly dim out. That also stops them from flickering if you hit dirty track. It's basically a keep alive, but it doesn't affect the motor. It was just something that I thought of, and I figured I would try it. Just in case if I don't put DCC in this thing, I wanted the lights to still operate at a low speed, not like my my T1. You can barely see the lights when the train is going really slow. And I would have had the same issue with this if I didn't use the capacitors. I'm kind of happy with the way it came out. Unfortunately, it was a lot of work because, like an idiot, when I wired in the LEDs, I wanted to use three resistors in series, so I wouldn't put too much current in the LEDs. I don't want them too bright. And I had a brain fart, and I hooked all 3 resistors up to parallel. And instead of the LEDs getting 1.5 volts, they got, 5 volts, and they blew up, and they were all crazy glued in. And I had to dig them all back out. The only light that I didn't blow was the headlight, because it had its own resistor on it to protect it from stupidity. So anyway, there you have it. So those light boards light up. We'll show you that again. Unfortunately, I'm holding the train here. I don't know if you can see them, but they're lit up. Anyway. Yeah, you really can't tell. But the number 501 is in there. I put it on the nose as well. The headlight has a black ring around it. not flush, it's just protruding a little bit. I did put taillights in the tender, they're not hooked up yet. So that's that. Sorry for rambling. Let me know what you think about my little contraption with the LEDs and the capacitors. Thank you for watching. Have a good night.